You know that feeling when your heart is pounding so hard, you can hear it over a live wedding band? When you're standing in a room full of 200 people, but you've never felt more alone in your entire life. That was me. Exactly 30 seconds before I completely destroyed my sister's perfect wedding reception. Let me paint you the picture. The Sterling Manor ballroom looked like something straight out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers worth more than most people's cars hung from the ceiling, casting warm golden light over tables draped in the finest ivory silk. White roses and peonies were arranged in towering centerpieces that probably cost $500 each. The kind of wedding that gets featured in magazines and makes other brides weep with envy. My sister Brittany sat at the head table, absolutely glowing in her stolen wedding dress. Yes, you heard that right. Stolen. We'll get to that bombshell in a minute, but trust me, it gets so much worse than just theft. Brittany looked like every bride's dream come true. Her makeup was flawless. Her hair was styled in an elaborate updo with tiny pearls woven throughout, and she was practically radiating happiness as guests approached to congratulate her. But sitting right next to her was Tyler, her new husband, and something was seriously wrong with his smile. It was the kind of forced expression you wear when you're dying inside but have to pretend everything is perfect. I was the only person in that entire ballroom who knew why Tyler looked like he was attending his own funeral instead of celebrating his wedding day. You see, just 2 days earlier, this same man had shown up at my apartment at 9 o'clock at night, tears streaming down his face, clutching a letter in his shaking hands. A letter that was now burning a hole in my purse like a loaded weapon. I'm Jessica, by the way. 28 years old, senior marketing director at a Fortune 500 company, and apparently the family member everyone expects to just take whatever garbage gets thrown at me. Take the insults, take the dismissive comments, take having my most precious dreams literally stolen from my own closet while I'm out of town on business. That gorgeous dress Brittany was wearing, the one everyone kept complimenting her on, the vintage French lace that made her look like a 1950s movie star? I bought that dress in a tiny boutique in Paris 3 years ago for $12,000. $12,000 of my own hard-earned money. It was supposed to be MY wedding dress, for MY perfect day with MY perfect man. Except my perfect day never came because I caught my fiancé Marcus sending romantic text messages to his ex-girlfriend Amanda at 2 in the morning. Messages about missing each other and planning secret goodbye dinners behind my back. When I confronted him about it, he had the audacity to look me in the eye and say, "She understands me in ways that you just don't, Jessica." I called off our wedding 8 weeks before the ceremony, lost thousands of dollars in deposits, and had to call 150 guests to tell them there wouldn't be a celebration after all. The dress hung in my closet for months afterward like a beautiful ghost, reminding me every day of how naive I'd been to believe in happily ever after. But this story isn't really about a dress, even though that dress cost more than some people's cars. This is about 30 years of being the responsible daughter, the reliable sister, the one who always puts everyone else's needs before her own. This is about being told you're too sensitive when you dare to have feelings, or too dramatic when you ask for basic respect. This is about watching your younger sister get away with absolutely everything while you're expected to smile and take it. Just 5 minutes earlier, Brittany's maid of honor had finished giving a speech that made my stomach turn. She'd stood up there with her champagne glass raised high, gushing about how Brittany always gets what she wants because she deserves the best things in life. The entire room had applauded and laughed, completely unaware of the sick irony of those words. I sat there watching my sister bask in all those compliments about how absolutely stunning she looked in MY $12,000 dress, knowing what I knew about her secret text messages with Connor, her ex-boyfriend from college. Messages that would destroy this perfect fairy tale in about 30 seconds. Tyler's letter felt like it weighed 100 pounds in my purse. 3 pages of raw, honest pain from a good man who discovered that the woman he just married had been emotionally cheating on him for months. Messages between Brittany and Connor about still loving each other, about maybe running away together, about whether she was making a mistake marrying Tyler. The logical part of my brain was screaming at me to stay quiet, to keep the peace, to let Brittany have her perfect moment even though it was built on lies and theft. That's what the old Jessica would have done. The Jessica who always swallowed her feelings to make everyone else comfortable. But something had shifted inside me over the past few days. Maybe it was watching Tyler break down in my living room. Maybe it was seeing my stolen dress being celebrated as if it belonged to someone else. Maybe it was finally realizing that keeping the peace isn't actually peaceful when it means letting good people get hurt. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the marble floor with a sound that seemed incredibly loud in the elegant room. My hands were shaking slightly as I picked up my champagne glass and Tyler's letter, but my voice was surprisingly steady. "Excuse me," I said, tapping my knife against the crystal glass. The clear, ringing sound cut through the conversations and laughter like a sword. "Could I have everyone's attention, please?" 200 faces turned toward me, including Brittany's. She was still smiling that radiant bride smile, probably expecting some sweet speech about childhood memories and how proud I was to see her so happy. Tyler wasn't smiling anymore. He'd gone completely pale, his eyes locked on mine across the room. He could see the letter in my hand, and in that moment he knew exactly what was about to happen. "I wanted to say something special about the bride and groom," I continued, my voice carrying clearly across the now silent ballroom. Brittany's smile flickered for just a second when she noticed the folded papers in my other hand. What happened in the next 60 seconds changed everything between us forever. But let me back up and tell you exactly how we got to this moment, because you need to understand the twisted family dynamic that created this disaster. Brittany and I weren't always enemies. Once upon a time, we were just 2 little girls who shared a pink bedroom and fought over who got to use the glitter crayons. I was born first, which should have made me the big sister everyone looked up to. Instead, from the moment Brittany arrived 2 years later, I became the supporting actress in the movie of her life. Here's how it worked in the Thompson family. When I brought home a report card with straight A's, Dad would barely glance up from his newspaper and mutter, "Good job, kiddo," before turning back to the sports section. But when Brittany brought home B's and C's, suddenly it was celebration time. "Look how hard Brittany's working. She's really trying her best. Let's go get ice cream to celebrate her progress." I learned early that excellence was expected from me, but effort was celebrated in her. By middle school, our roles were carved in stone. I was the brain, Brittany was the beauty. I won academic awards and got polite applause. She won the school talent show and got standing ovations. When I made the honor roll for the 4th year in a row, Mom would say, "That's nice, honey." When Brittany got picked for the cheerleading squad, Mom threw her a party. The family motto became "Jessica will figure it out" whenever I had problems. But for Brittany, she needs our support right now. High school made everything worse. I was National Honor Society president, debate team captain, and got early admission to Northwestern University with a partial scholarship. Brittany barely passed her classes but got voted homecoming princess and dated the quarterback. Guess which achievement got more attention at family dinners? I'll never forget senior prom. Brittany's dress cost $800 and came with professional hair, makeup, and a photographer. She had a limousine, a corsage that cost more than my entire outfit, and half the football team carrying her train like she was royalty. I went with Marcus, my debate partner, in a simple blue dress I'd bought on sale. We carpooled with 3 other couples in someone's mom's minivan. When the local newspaper ran photos of prom court, Brittany was front and center in full color. I got cropped out when they posted it online. College was supposed to be my time to shine. I graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern with a business degree, landed internships at top companies, and had job offers before graduation. But family conversations were still dominated by Brittany's latest dating drama and her struggles to find herself while living in mom and dad's basement. "Jessica will be fine," became mom's constant refrain. "She's so smart and capable, she'll figure everything out. But Brittany really needs our emotional support right now." I threw myself into my career like a woman possessed. Marketing analyst by 23, senior analyst by 25, director by 26. I was making six figures and living in my own downtown condo, while Brittany was still deciding what she wanted to do with her life. But somehow, she was still the one getting all the family attention and concern. At 27, I reconnected with Marcus at our 10-year high school reunion. He'd gone to Harvard Business School, become a successful consultant, and suddenly we clicked in ways we never had as teenagers. We understood each other's ambition, our crazy work schedules, our drive to succeed. When Marcus proposed after 8 months of dating, I felt like my real life was finally beginning. Not just the responsible daughter or the successful career woman, but the bride. The woman someone chose to build a life with. We started planning immediately. June wedding at the Riverside Country Club. Reception for 150 guests. Honeymoon in Tuscany. Everything I dreamed of since I was little finally happening for me. And then I found the dress. I was in Paris for a marketing conference, walking through the Marais district during my lunch break, when I saw it displayed in a tiny boutique window. 1950s vintage French lace with hand-sewn pearls, a fitted bodice that would hug every curve, and a cathedral train that would make me feel like Grace Kelly. The elderly shop owner told me it was designed in 1954 for a Parisian socialite who called off her wedding at the last minute. "Perhaps it will have better luck with you, mademoiselle," she said in heavily accented English. When I tried it on in that little dressing room, I actually started crying. Not because it was beautiful, though it absolutely was, but because for the first time in my entire life I felt like the princess. Like the main character. Like someone whose happiness actually mattered. I spent my entire Paris shopping budget on that dress. 3,000 euros, which was about $12,000 at the time. It was completely irresponsible and totally worth every penny. The next 6 months were the happiest of my life. Wedding planning gave me a legitimate reason to be the center of attention in my own family for once. Mom actually seemed excited about my flowers, my menu choices, my venue selection. Dad kept bragging to his golf buddies about his daughter getting married at the country club. Even Brittany seemed genuinely happy for me. She helped address invitations, came to cake tastings, and offered to plan my bachelorette party. I thought maybe we were finally going to have the sisterly relationship I'd always wanted. Then everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday night 8 weeks before my wedding. I got up at 2 in the morning for a glass of water and found Marcus on the living room couch, his face lit up by his phone screen as he typed message after message, smiling at the responses. "Who are you texting at 2 a.m.? I asked. He jumped like I'd caught him robbing a bank. "Oh, just work stuff. Client emergency." But I could read upside down, and the contact name wasn't Client Emergency. It was Amanda Redheart, with a red heart emoji. The fight that followed lasted until sunrise. Turns out Amanda, his college ex-girlfriend, had reached out 3 months earlier to reconnect as friends. But the messages I saw weren't friendly. They were planning secret dinner dates while I was working late. They were reminiscing about their college relationship and wondering what might have been. "We never slept together," Marcus kept insisting. Like that made the emotional betrayal somehow acceptable. It was just talking. "She understands my career pressure in ways that..." He stopped himself before finishing that sentence, but we both knew exactly what he meant. She understood him in ways that I didn't. I called off the wedding that same morning. 8 weeks of remaining deposits, 150 disappointed guests, and one perfect dress that would never walk down an aisle. The dress hung in my closet for months afterward. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of the lace sleeve and feel physically sick. Other times I'd touch the fabric and remember how magical it felt to finally be the bride instead of always the bridesmaid. 6 months later, Brittany bounced into Sunday family dinner with a diamond ring on her finger and Tyler by her side. "We're engaged," she squealed, showing off a rock that probably cost more than my car. And just like that, I was back to being the supporting character in the Brittany show. That's when she first laid eyes on my dress, hanging alone in my closet like a beautiful ghost. "You know," she said, fingering the delicate lace, "it's such a shame this gorgeous dress is just sitting here waiting for nothing." "You know," Brittany said, running her fingers along the delicate French lace, "it's such a shame this gorgeous dress is just sitting here waiting for nothing." The way she said it made my stomach clench. Like my $12,000 wedding dress was a library book I'd finished reading, just collecting dust on a shelf. Like the fact that my engagement ended somehow made my dreams worthless. "Brittany, that dress is..." I started, then stopped. "How do you explain to someone that a piece of fabric holds pieces of your heart? It's absolutely stunning, isn't it?" she continued, examining the hand-sewn pearl details like she was appraising jewelry. "This must have cost a fortune. All that French lace, the custom beadwork. Tyler and I are trying to stick to a reasonable budget, you know? Dad's already committed to spending $25,000 on the venue and catering, so I really need to cut corners somewhere else." Cut corners. She was talking about cutting corners on someone else's shattered dreams, while planning a reception that costs more than most people's annual salary. "The dress has deep sentimental value, Britt," I said carefully. "I know the wedding didn't happen, but it still means something important to me." "But what?" She turned those manipulative blue eyes on me, the same ones that had gotten her out of trouble since kindergarten. "You're going to keep it forever? Like some kind of shrine to Marcus?" The word shrine hit me like a physical slap. This wasn't about Marcus and hadn't been for months. This was about the moment I felt chosen, special, beautiful. This was about dreams that were mine before they became heartbreak. "It's not about Marcus," I said quietly but firmly. "It represents something important to me. Something I'm not ready to let go of." Brittany's expression shifted, and for just a second, I saw something I'd rarely seen from her. Genuine annoyance that she wasn't immediately getting her way. Her perfect mask slipped just enough to show the entitled princess underneath. "Important how exactly?" she pressed, her voice taking on a slightly sharper edge. "You're never going to wear it, Jessica. It's just hanging there, taking up space in your closet. At least if I wore it, it would actually fulfill its purpose instead of being a monument to something that went wrong." Fulfill its purpose. As if a wedding dress's only value was being worn, regardless of by whom, regardless of the emotional cost to its owner. "Besides," she continued, warming to her theme like a politician hitting their talking points, "isn't there something beautiful about keeping it in the family? About giving it a happy ending instead of letting it be a painful reminder of what went wrong in your life?" I felt myself wavering for a moment. Maybe she had a point. Maybe I was being selfish, clinging to something that only brought me pain. Maybe this was my chance to be the supportive sister, the bigger person, the one who puts family first like I've been trained to do my entire life. "I understand it's emotional," Brittany pressed on, sensing my hesitation like a shark smelling blood in the water. "But think about it practically, Jess. You spent all that money on a dress that never got its moment to shine. I could give it that moment. I could make it part of something beautiful and meaningful again, instead of just a sad reminder hanging in your closet." But then I really looked at her. Really looked at her. She wasn't asking to borrow my dress because she loved it or because it was perfect for her vision. She was asking because it was expensive and convenient, and she thought I was too broken and pathetic to say no. I'm sorry, Brittany, I said, stepping between her and my closet. I know you need a dress, and I'd be happy to help you find something absolutely perfect for you. But this one stays with me. The temperature in my bedroom dropped about 10 degrees. Brittany's smile vanished like it had never existed, replaced by something cold and calculating. Seriously. Her voice was pure ice now. You're going to hoard a dress you'll never wear because of some emotional attachment to your failed relationship? It's not about Marcus. Then what is it about? She snapped, all pretense of sisterly sweetness abandoned. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you'd rather keep a piece of fabric as a memorial to your mistakes than help your sister have the perfect wedding day she deserves. There it was. The guilt trip I'd been expecting. In 30 seconds, she'd made me the villain in a story about her trying to take something that belonged to me. You know what Mom's going to say about this? She continued, pulling out the big guns. She's been so excited about this wedding. Especially after everything that happened with your situation. She was really hoping we could keep things positive and supportive in the family. My situation? Like I'd chosen to be cheated on. Like calling off a wedding to an unfaithful fiancé was a character flaw instead of an act of self-respect. I'm keeping the dress, Brittany, I repeated, my voice steady despite the emotional manipulation swirling around me. But I'll help you find something even better. We can go shopping this weekend, look at boutiques, maybe even find a designer who can create something custom just for you. I don't want something else. She exploded, the perfect bride mask cracking completely. I want that dress. It's perfect, it's expensive, and you're not using it. Why should it sit in your closet being wasted when I could wear it and look absolutely stunning? There it was. Not I love this dress, or it would mean so much to me. Just raw entitlement. I want it and you're not using it, so give it to me. Brittany, the answer is no. Final answer. She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not just disappointment or anger, but cold calculation. Like she was working through a problem and hadn't quite found the solution yet. Fine, she said finally, grabbing her purse from my dresser. Have it your way, Jessica. She headed for my bedroom door, then turned back with that 1,000-watt smile that had been fooling people our entire lives. But you know what? Someday you're going to have to decide whether holding on to the past is more important than supporting your family. And when that day comes, I hope you make the right choice. The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with my dress and a sick feeling in my stomach that this wasn't over. 3 days later at Sunday family dinner, the real campaign began. Jessica, honey, Mom said over her famous pot roast. Brittany mentioned you have some concerns about lending her your wedding dress. Concerns? Like I was being irrational about protecting my most precious possession. It's not concerns, Mom. I just don't want to lend it out. Dad looked up from his plate with that disappointed expression I knew so well. Sweetheart, I know that dress cost a lot of money. Seems like a waste to just let it sit in your closet collecting dust. It's not about the money. Then what's it about? Mom interrupted. Because Brittany explained that you're keeping it for sentimental reasons. But honey, wouldn't it be more meaningful to see it have a happy ending? Brittany sat there looking wounded and confused, like she couldn't understand why her reasonable request was being rejected by her unreasonable sister. The performance was Oscar-worthy. I just thought it would be beautiful, she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. Something borrowed from someone I love. A way to feel connected to family on my special day. But if Jessica feels that strongly about it, you know, Mom continued, clearly having been coached, this wedding means so much to our entire family. After everything that happened with your engagement, we're all just so excited to have something joyful to celebrate. After everything that happened with my engagement. like it was ancient history instead of a wound that was still healing. I understand that, I said carefully. And I'm excited for Brittany's wedding. But this particular dress is just fabric, Jessica, Dad said bluntly. And Brittany is your sister. Family comes first. Family comes first. The family motto that had governed my entire life and kept me small. Be the good daughter. Be the supportive sister. Put everyone else's needs and wants before your own dignity and feelings. Besides, Mom added with a sigh, it's not like you're getting married anytime soon. You're so focused on your career and after Marcus. Well, maybe it's better to focus on what's really important. Like family. Not getting married anytime soon. After Marcus. Like I was damaged goods with no prospects instead of a successful woman who'd chosen self-respect over settling. I'm not lending the dress, I said quietly but firmly. I'll help Brittany find something else, something perfect for her, but that dress stays with me. The rest of dinner was Arctic. Brittany picked at her food and looked tragic. Mom kept sighing and making pointed comments about stubbornness and misplaced priorities. Dad just shook his head like I was a disappointment he couldn't quite understand. I left feeling like the worst sister in the world for protecting something that meant everything to me. For 2 weeks, I got the complete silent treatment. No calls, no texts, no inclusion in the family group chat. I was officially in the doghouse for the crime of refusing to hand over my most precious possession to make someone else's day more convenient. Then I came home from a 3-day business trip to find my closet door standing wide open and my dress gone. Just an empty hanger swaying slightly in the air conditioning, like a ghost of what used to be there. My hands were shaking as I called Brittany. "Oh," she said when she answered, her voice bright and fake surprised. "I was going to call you. Mom gave me her spare key to water your plants while you were in Chicago, and I saw the dress just hanging there and I thought maybe you changed your mind about letting me borrow it." Changed my mind. Without telling anyone. Without a conversation. Just magically changed my mind about the most important piece of clothing I owned. "Brittany, bring it back right now." "But Jessica, the wedding is in 3 days. The seamstress already altered it perfectly. It fits like it was made for me. I don't care if the wedding is tomorrow. It's my dress. You took it without permission." "I didn't take it," she said, and I could hear the crocodile tears starting. "I borrowed it. From family. Because I thought you'd finally come to your senses and realize that family is more important than holding grudges." When I called Mom, it got worse. "Jessica, honey, the wedding is in 3 days. You can't seriously expect her to find a new dress now. Just let her have this one day. You can have the dress back after the reception. After the wedding. After it had been worn by someone else for someone else's happiest day. After it stopped being mine and became a hand-me-down. Please, sweetheart," Dad added when he got on the phone. "Don't ruin your sister's wedding over a dress. People will talk. The family will be humiliated if there's drama. People will talk. About me ruining the wedding, not about my sister stealing from me. About my selfishness, not her entitlement." I hung up and sat in my empty apartment, staring at the vacant space in my closet where my dreams used to hang. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be truly alone in your own family. 2 days before Brittany's wedding, my doorbell rang at 9 o'clock at night. I wasn't expecting anyone, and when I looked through the peephole, I saw Tyler standing in my hallway looking like he'd been hit by a freight train. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie was hanging loose around his neck, and his eyes were red-rimmed like he'd been crying or hadn't slept in days. Probably both. "Jessica," he said when I opened the door, his voice hoarse and broken. "I'm really sorry to bother you this late, but I need to talk to someone. And you're honestly the only person I trust right now." The only person he trusted. Not his bride-to-be. Not his groomsman. Not his family. Me. That should have been my first clue about how bad this was going to be. I led him to my living room and poured him a drink. Tyler wasn't the type for drama or emotional breakdowns. If he was here, something was seriously wrong. I don't even know how to start this conversation, he began, staring at his hands like they held the answers to the universe. I don't even know if I should be here. But I can't marry her on Saturday without knowing if I'm making the biggest mistake of my entire life. This wasn't normal pre-wedding jitters. This was pure anguish sitting on my couch. Tyler, what's going on? He looked up at me with such raw pain in his eyes that my heart broke for him before he even spoke. I found text messages on her phone. For simple words that explained everything. The distance I'd noticed between them lately. The way Brittany's eyes would dart to her phone during family dinners. The way Tyler had seemed strained and quiet whenever I'd seen them together recently. Between her and Connor, he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Her ex-boyfriend from college. Connor. I remembered him vaguely from Brittany's university years. Tall, charming, the kind of guy who collected hearts like trophies and left a trail of broken women in his wake. He dumped Brittany right before graduation, claiming he wasn't ready for commitment, leaving her devastated for months. Tyler's hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone. I swear to God, Jessica, I wasn't snooping. Her phone was buzzing while she was in the shower last Sunday morning, and I glanced at it thinking it might be important. Maybe the wedding coordinator or her mom, or something about the reception. Instead, it was Connor. And not just one message. A whole conversation thread going back months. Look at this one, Tyler said, showing me his screen with trembling fingers. From 3 weeks ago. I read the message and felt sick to my stomach. Connor? I keep thinking about what we had. No one's ever understood me the way you did, Brittany. I know. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you hadn't gotten scared and run away senior year. Connor? I wasn't ready then. I am now. Are you really happy with him? Brittany. Tyler's a good man. He's stable, reliable, safe. But he's predictable, you know? Sometimes I miss the excitement we had together. I felt like I was going to throw up reading it. Not just for Tyler, but because this was so perfectly Brittany. The grass was always greener somewhere else. The current situation was never quite enough. There's more, Tyler said, his voice cracking. So much more. He scrolled through message after message. Intimate conversations about their past relationship. Brittany sharing details about her engagement that she should have been sharing with her fiancé. Not her ex Connor telling her he'd made a mistake letting her go. They've been meeting up, Tyler continued, and now he was openly crying. Coffee dates when I'm at work. Lunch meetings when she tells me she's with her college roommate Sarah. Sarah. Brittany's college roommate who lived in Seattle, and definitely wasn't having coffee dates in downtown Chicago. Look at this one from last week, Tyler said, showing me another exchange that made my blood run cold. Connor. I love you, Brittany. I never stopped loving you. Call off the wedding and come to San Francisco with me. We could have the life we always talked about having together. Brittany. You know I can't do that. Too much is already planned. Too many people would be hurt. The invitations are already sent. Connor. So you're really going through with it? You're really going to marry him when you know we belong together? Brittany. I don't know, Connor. I honestly don't know. I need more time to think. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Tyler set his phone down and put his head in his hands. 2 weeks ago, Jessica. 2 weeks ago, she was considering calling off our wedding to run away with her ex-boyfriend, and I'm just finding out about it now. I wanted to comfort him, but I was also furious. Furious at Brittany for doing this to a genuinely good man. furious that she was stealing my dress to marry someone while secretly planning her escape with someone else. Have you talked to her about any of this? I asked gently. How do I even start that conversation? He asked, looking up at me with desperate eyes. 2 days before our wedding. Hey honey, I know you've been emotionally cheating on me with your ex for months. Want to talk about it? All the plans are made, Jessica. The guests are flying in from across the country. Your parents spent $25,000 on this reception. The pressure he was under was crushing. Everyone expecting him to go through with a wedding to someone who was betraying him. Tyler, I said carefully, those are all terrible reasons to get married. I know, he exploded, then immediately lowered his voice. I know that. But what am I supposed to do? Call it off 2 days before and humiliate both our families? Admit that the woman I love has been lying to me for months? Stand up in front of everyone and say I can't marry her because she's still in love with someone else? He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out several folded pieces of paper. I wrote her a letter, he said quietly. Everything I wanted to say. All the questions I need answers to. All the hurt I'm feeling. He handed the letter to me, and I read it with growing heartbreak. 3 pages of someone trying to understand how the person they loved could betray them so completely. Questions about whether anything in their relationship had been real. Pain over feeling like he was competing with a ghost from her past. Some of the lines hit me like physical blows. I thought we were building something real together, but now I wonder if I was just a placeholder until something better came along. You told me you loved me while texting another man that you still loved him. How do I reconcile those two truths? I deserve someone who chooses me every day, not someone who settles for me while dreaming of someone else. Were you thinking about him when you said yes to my proposal? Were you thinking about him when we picked out wedding rings? Were you thinking about him every time you told me you couldn't wait to be my wife? I keep going back and forth, Tyler said, watching me read. Part of me wants to give this to her tonight and force the conversation we should have had months ago. Part of me thinks I should just go through with the wedding and try to make it work somehow. Tyler, I said carefully, you can't start a marriage built on lies and secrets. If you have these doubts, these questions, you need to address them before Saturday, not after. But what if the truth is that she loves him more than me? He asked, and his voice was so small and broken. What if I force this conversation and she calls off the wedding to be with him? What if I'm alone again? I looked at this good, honest man who was torturing himself over loving someone who didn't deserve it. Then wouldn't you rather know that now instead of finding out after you're married? I said gently. Wouldn't you rather be alone than be with someone who wishes she was with someone else? He stared at me for a long moment, processing what I'd said. We both knew I was right, but knowing something and accepting it are two different things. I should give her the letter tomorrow, he said finally. Force the conversation. Clear the air before Saturday. You should, I agreed. But then he broke down completely. Shoulders shaking, tears flowing, the sound of a man's heart shattering in real time. I love her so much, Jessica, he sobbed. Even knowing all this, even seeing those messages, I still love her. How pathetic is that? I sat beside him on my couch, rubbing his back while he cried. This good, honest man was destroying himself over loving someone who didn't deserve his devotion. Meanwhile, Brittany was getting fitted for my stolen dress, preparing for her perfect day built on deception and lies. I don't know what to do, he whispered. If I confront her and she chooses Connor, I lose her. If I don't confront her and we get married, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if she's really mine or if she's just settling for me. Looking at this broken man in my living room, I realized something profound. Tyler deserved so much better than this. Better than a woman who kept him as a backup plan. Better than a marriage built on secrets and emotional infidelity. When Tyler left an hour later, he was still undecided about the letter. He set it down on my coffee table, saying he needed to think about whether to give it to Brittany or not. "I'll decide tomorrow," he said at my door. "Maybe sleeping on it will give me some clarity." After he left, I sat staring at that letter on my coffee table. 3 pages of honest pain from a man who deserved honesty in return. 2 days later, Brittany would walk down the aisle in my stolen dress to marry a man she was betraying. She'd be celebrated for her beauty, congratulated for landing such a good man, praised for her perfect wedding day. And Tyler would stand at that altar not knowing if the woman he was marrying really loved him, or was just settling for him because her first choice wasn't available. Meanwhile, I'd be sitting in the audience, watching my sister get everything she wanted by taking what wasn't hers and lying about who she really was. I picked up Tyler's letter and read it again. Every word was honest. Every emotion was real. Every question deserved an answer. Brittany had stolen my dress without permission. But Tyler had given me something much more powerful without realizing it. The truth. If Brittany wanted to build her perfect day on theft and lies, maybe it was time someone reminded her that the truth has a way of coming out, especially when someone finally gets brave enough to speak it. Saturday morning dawned absolutely perfect. Clear blue skies, 72 degrees, gentle breeze rustling through the trees. The kind of day that makes you believe in fairy tales and happily ever after. The kind of day that makes perfect weddings even more perfect. I woke up at 6 a.m. with Tyler's letter on my nightstand, and a knot in my stomach the size of a bowling ball. I took my time getting ready, each step deliberate and careful. Hot shower to calm my nerves. Makeup applied with steady hands despite the chaos in my mind. Hair styled in soft waves that would look elegant but not attention-grabbing. I chose a navy blue dress, sophisticated but understated. The last thing I wanted was to upstage the bride on her special day. The irony of that thought almost made me laugh out loud. Tyler's letter felt like it weighed 50 pounds in my purse. Every few minutes I'd catch myself touching the clasp, making sure it was still there. My insurance policy. My nuclear option. The truth that could destroy everything or set everyone free. Part of me kept hoping my phone would ring. Tyler calling to say he'd grown a backbone overnight and confronted Brittany himself. That they'd had an honest conversation and either worked things out like adults or called off the wedding with dignity intact. The phone stayed silent. Sterling Manor looked like something straight out of a bridal magazine when I arrived. White roses and peonies cascaded from every surface, crystal chandeliers gleamed like diamonds, and ivory silk draped gracefully from the ceiling. Mom had outdone herself with the decorating, and Dad had clearly spared no expense. This was the wedding of their dreams, even if it was built on lies. The place buzzed with excited energy. Vendors rushed around putting finishing touches on centerpieces. Family members gushed about how beautiful everything looked, and early arriving guests marveled at the elegant setup while taking selfies in front of the flower walls. I found Mom and Dad near the entrance, greeting guests with bright smiles that faltered slightly when they saw me approaching. "Jessica," Mom said, her tone carefully neutral. "You look nice." Nice. Not beautiful, not stunning, not radiant like a bride's sister should look. Nice. The kind of compliment you give someone you're still disappointed in but trying to be polite to. "The venue looks absolutely incredible, Mom," I said, trying to bridge the gap that had opened between us. "You've really outdone yourself. This is going to be the wedding everyone talks about for years." "Well, we wanted Brittany's day to be absolutely perfect," she replied with a pointed edge. "Despite everything that's happened, we wanted her to have the fairy tale wedding she's always dreamed of. Despite everything. Meaning despite my selfishness about the dress. Despite my inability to be a supportive sister. despite me being the problem in this whole beautiful situation. Dad nodded at me stiffly, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Glad you decided to come today," he said. "It means a lot to your sister that you're here to support her." Decided to come. Like attending my sister's wedding was optional. Like I was doing them all a favor by showing up to watch my stolen dress walk down the aisle while everyone praised how stunning the bride looked. "The bridal party is getting ready upstairs in the honeymoon suite," Mom informed me. "Brittany specifically asked that you come up to see her before the ceremony starts. She wants you to be part of getting ready." Of course she did. Part of me wondered if this was Brittany's version of an olive branch. Maybe she'd realized how badly she'd handled the dress situation and wanted to apologize before walking down the aisle. Maybe she wanted to make peace before starting her new life as Mrs. Tyler Richardson. I climbed the ornate marble staircase to the bridal suite, my heels clicking against each step. With every click, the knot in my stomach grew tighter, and Tyler's letter seemed to grow heavier in my purse. The bridal suite was a whirlwind of activity and excitement. 3 bridesmaids in blush pink dresses fluttered around like beautiful butterflies. The hairstylist was putting finishing touches on an elaborate updo. The makeup artist was applying a final coat of lip gloss. The photographer was capturing every moment of getting ready bliss for the wedding album. And there, in the center of it all like a queen holding court, was Brittany in my dress. I hate to admit it, but she looked absolutely stunning. The vintage French lace fit her like it had been designed specifically for her body. Mom must have taken her to the same seamstress who'd originally altered it for me, because every line was perfect. The cathedral train spread behind her like a waterfall of silk and hand-sewn pearls, catching the light from the crystal chandelier above. "Jessica!" she squealed when she spotted me, rushing over in a cloud of tulle and expensive perfume. "Oh my God, don't I look absolutely amazing? This dress is so perfect I could cry. I feel like a princess." The audacity was breathtaking. Not "thank you for letting me borrow it," or "I'm sorry about how this all happened." Just pure, unapologetic joy about how incredible she looked in something she'd stolen from my closet. "Brittany, you look like something out of a fairy tale," gushed her maid of honor Amanda. "That dress is absolutely incredible. Where on earth did you find something so gorgeous?" "It's vintage French lace from the 1950s, Brittany said, doing a little twirl that made the train fan out behind her. "It's actually a family heirloom with very special meaning. It's been waiting for the right bride to wear it." Family heirloom. Special meaning. She was rewriting history in real time, turning my heartbreak into her heritage, my dreams into her fairy tale backstory. "Ladies, can we get some photos of the bride with her sister?" the photographer called out. Family moments are always so precious and meaningful. I found myself standing next to Brittany, forced to smile while she practically glowed with happiness in my $12,000 dress. The camera clicked away, capturing what would look like a sweet sisterly moment, but felt like posing next to someone wearing my own skin. When the photographer moved on to other shots, Brittany grabbed my arm and pulled me aside to a quieter corner of the suite. "Jessica, I need you to know how much this means to me," she said, her voice low and intense. "Wearing this dress, it's like having you with me, you know? Like having your blessing on my marriage and my new life with Tyler." My blessing on her marriage built on lies, celebrated in my stolen dress, while the groom suffered in silence downstairs. "I just want you to be genuinely happy for me today," she continued, her eyes searching my face. "I know things got a little tense about the dress situation, but look how perfectly everything worked out. You get to see it have the happy ending it deserves, and I get to feel like the most beautiful bride in the world. The happy ending it deserves. Like my dress was a character in her romantic story, instead of a symbol of my own shattered dreams." "I should let you finish getting ready," I said, stepping back before I said something I couldn't take back. I'll see you downstairs. As I headed for the door, I caught a glimpse of Tyler through the window. He was standing with his groomsmen in the garden, looking handsome in his black tuxedo but pale as a sheet. His smile seemed forced as his best man cracked jokes and slapped his back in encouragement. "You good, man?" I heard his best man ask through the open window. "You look like you barely slept last night." "Just wetting nerves," Tyler replied, but I could hear the strain in his voice even from a distance. I wanted to walk over there, to ask if he'd made his decision about the letter, to offer some kind of support. But what was the point? If he'd chosen to confront Brittany, there wouldn't be a wedding today. If he'd chosen to stay silent, then my moment of decision was rapidly approaching. The ceremony was set to begin at 4 o'clock. Guests were filing into the garden area, taking their seats in white wooden chairs decorated with ribbon and flowers. The string quartet played soft classical music while everyone settled in and admired the perfect setup. I took my seat in the third row family section but not front row. That was reserved for immediate family, who supported the bride unconditionally. I was clearly in the complicated family section. At exactly 4 o'clock, the music changed to the wedding march and everyone stood. Brittany appeared at the end of the aisle looking like every bride's dream come true. The collective gasp from the guests was audible. She looked absolutely radiant, glowing with happiness, every inch the perfect fairy tale princess. Dad walked beside her with tears of pride in his eyes, beaming as he escorted his baby girl toward her future husband. But I was watching Tyler's face when he saw Brittany approaching in my dress. Love, yes, but also something that looked like resignation. Like a man going through the motions of the happiest day of his life while dying inside. The ceremony was beautiful and traditional. Classic vows about love, honor, and cherishing each other forever. Readings about soulmates and perfect matches. Everything a romantic wedding should be. Brittany's voice was strong and clear as she promised to love, honor, and cherish Tyler for all the days of her life. Tyler's vows were heartbreaking, knowing what I knew. He spoke about finding his other half, about never wanting to imagine life without her, about being grateful every day that she'd chosen him, while texting another man that she still loved him and considering running away to San Francisco. When the minister got to the speak now or forever hold your peace part, there was a moment of silence that felt like it lasted forever. I could feel Tyler's letter burning in my purse, but this wasn't the moment. Not yet. "I do," Brittany said, her voice ringing clear across the garden. "I do," Tyler said, and I caught the slight crack in his voice that probably no one else noticed. They kissed, everyone cheered, and just like that, my sister was married in my stolen dress to a man she was deceiving. The reception would begin in 1 hour. Dinner, speeches, dancing, and toasts. One of those toasts was going to be very different from what everyone expected. I had 1 hour to make my final decision. 1 hour to choose between keeping the peace and telling the truth. Between protecting my family's reputation and protecting a good man from a lifetime of doubt and betrayal. Tyler's letter felt heavier than ever in my purse. An hour from now, everyone would know the truth. The Sterling Manor ballroom had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast warm golden light over tables draped in the finest ivory silk. Each centerpiece was a masterpiece of white roses and baby's breath that probably cost more than most people's weekly salary. The head table sat elevated on a small platform, decorated with cascading flowers and twinkling fairy lights like something out of a romantic movie. 200 guests found their assigned seats, still buzzing with excitement from witnessing what everyone was calling the most beautiful ceremony they'd ever seen. Wine glasses clinked in toasts, laughter echoed off the high ceilings, and the air practically sparkled with that special energy that comes from witnessing true love. Except it wasn't true love. It was a performance built on lies. I was seated at table 6. Not the family table, of course. That honor was reserved for aunts and uncles who hadn't committed the sin of wanting to keep their own property. Table 6 was for difficult family members and distant relatives who didn't quite fit anywhere else in the perfect family portrait. At the head table, Brittany looked like she was floating on cloud 9. My $12,000 dress caught the light perfectly under the chandeliers, the vintage lace practically glowing like it was made of stardust. She kept touching Tyler's arm, whispering in his ear, leaning against him, playing the role of blissful new bride to absolute perfection. Tyler smiled at her touches and whispered back, but I could see the tightness around his eyes. The way his laugh didn't quite reach them. The way he kept fidgeting with his new wedding ring, like it was a shackle instead of a symbol of eternal love. Dinner was served with all the elegance Mom had planned for months. Herb-crusted salmon that melted in your mouth, perfectly prepared beef tenderloin, roasted vegetables that probably cost more per plate than most people's entire weekly grocery budget. I barely tasted any of it. My stomach was too twisted in knots, and Tyler's letter felt like it was burning a hole through my purse. My hands trembled slightly as I cut my salmon, mentally rehearsing what I was going to say. How do you destroy someone's perfect day in front of 200 people? How do you drop a truth bomb that will shatter illusions and break hearts? How do you find the courage to speak when everyone expects you to stay silent? After dinner, the speeches began with all the traditional wedding fanfare. Amanda, the maid of honor, went first with a perfectly crafted speech about friendship, loyalty, and finding your perfect match. She talked about how Brittany always knew exactly what she wanted, and how Tyler was exactly the man she'd been waiting for her entire life. If only she knew how many men Brittany had been waiting for. Dad followed with an emotional father of the bride speech that had half the room dabbing their eyes with napkins. He talked about watching Brittany grow up, about being proud to welcome Tyler into the family, about knowing she'd found her happily ever after. When you see your daughter this happy, he said, his voice cracking with emotion, when you see her absolutely glowing like she is tonight, you know without a doubt that she's exactly where she belongs. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. She was glowing, all right. Glowing in my stolen dress while deceiving her new husband about secret meetings with her ex-boyfriend. Tyler's best man, Kevin, gave a speech about friendship, loyalty, and standing by the people you love. About how Tyler was the most honest, trustworthy guy he'd ever known, and how he deserved a woman who would love him with her whole heart, completely and unconditionally. The crowd applauded enthusiastically, completely unaware that they were celebrating a marriage where only one person was being honest and trustworthy. Then the MC stepped up to the microphone and made an announcement that changed everything. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one more speaker tonight. The bride's sister, Jessica, would like to say a few words about the happy couple. Surprised murmurs rippled through the crowd like a wave. This wasn't on the printed program. Spontaneous sister speeches weren't unusual at weddings, but something about the energy in the room shifted. Maybe it was my expression. Maybe it was the way I stood up with deliberate slowness. Maybe people could sense that this wasn't going to be a typical toast. I stood up, champagne glass in one hand, Tyler's letter clearly visible in the other hand, though I kept it folded and discreet for now. My legs felt like jelly, but my voice was surprisingly steady when I spoke. Thank you, I said, and the room gradually quieted. Conversations died away. Chairs turned toward me. Silverware stopped clinking against plates. All eyes focused on the woman who was about to speak. Brittany was absolutely beaming at me from the head table, probably expecting some sweet story about growing up together or how proud I was to see her so radiantly happy. Her smile was brilliant and expectant. Tyler's face, however, had gone completely white. He could see the letter in my hand, and his eyes met mine across the room. In that moment, he knew exactly what was about to happen. There was fear in his expression, but also something that looked like relief. For those who don't know me, I'm Jessica, Brittany's older sister. I began, my voice carrying clearly across the now silent ballroom. I've had the privilege of watching Brittany her entire life, and I can tell you that one thing has always been absolutely true about her. She goes after what she wants. Polite chuckles from the audience. So far, this sounded like typical sisterly teasing, the kind of gentle roasting that happens at every wedding. Whether it was the lead role in the school play, the prettiest dress in the store, or the attention of the most popular boy in class, Brittany has never been one to let obstacles stand in her way. She's always been very determined when it comes to getting what she wants. The mood in the room began to shift slightly. There was something in my tone, something in the way I was building up to a point, that suggested this wasn't going to be entirely complimentary. Brittany's smile flickered for just a second. She could sense something was off, but she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. She's also never been someone who respects boundaries, I continued, my voice carrying clearly across the silent ballroom. Whether those boundaries belong to her sister, her friends, or... I paused for dramatic effect, letting the tension build. Her fiancé. You could feel the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees instantly. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats, wine glasses paused halfway to lips, and conversations stopped mid-sentence. This definitely wasn't sounding like a typical wedding toast anymore. Brittany's face went from glowing to ghostly pale in about 3 seconds. Tyler closed his eyes like he was preparing for impact. At the family table, Mom and Dad looked absolutely horrified. Mom was making subtle sit-down gestures with her hands, probably hoping I'd come to my senses and wrap this up with something sweet about sisterly love and family bonds. Instead, I held up Tyler's letter so everyone in the room could see it clearly. 2 days ago, I announced, my voice strong and clear. Tyler came to my apartment in tears. He discovered something about his bride-to-be that was keeping him awake at night, something that was making him question everything about their relationship. Audible gasps came from several tables. Whatever people had expected from this speech, it definitely wasn't this level of drama. Jessica, Brittany started to say, half rising from her chair with panic in her eyes. Please, I said firmly, my voice cutting through her attempt to interrupt. Let me finish. This is important. This is the truth. I unfolded Tyler's letter with deliberate slowness, letting the anticipation build. Tyler wrote a letter expressing his concerns about text messages he'd found on Brittany's phone. Messages between her and her ex-boyfriend Connor from college. The room erupted in shocked whispers and gasps. People turned to their neighbors with wide eyes. Voices rose in confusion and disbelief. Some guests looked horrified. Others seemed fascinated by the drama unfolding before them. Messages that revealed Brittany has been meeting with Connor in secret throughout their entire engagement. Coffee dates, lunch meetings, intimate conversations about their past relationship and their possible future together. The chaos in the room was growing. People were standing up, talking loudly, some looking toward the exits like they wanted to escape the uncomfortable situation. Brittany was desperately trying to do damage control. That's not Jessica, you don't understand, you're taking everything out of context. But her voice was lost in the growing murmur of the shocked crowd. Let me read you something Tyler wrote in this letter, I continued, raising my voice to be heard over the commotion. And I quote, "You told me you loved me while texting another man that you still loved him. How do I reconcile those two truths?" Direct quotes that completely destroyed any possibility of denial or explanation. Or this one, I continued relentlessly. I thought we were building something real together, but now I wonder if I was just a placeholder until something better came along. Tyler stood up slowly from the head table, his face a mixture of pain and relief, The relief of someone who's finally had the truth spoken aloud after months of suffering and silence. "It's all true," he said, his voice carrying across the stunned ballroom despite the chaos. "Every single word Jessica is saying is completely true." Brittany looked like she'd been physically slapped. The perfect bride mask had completely fallen away, revealing panic, anger, and desperation underneath. "Oh, and just one more thing," I added, because apparently I was going full scorched earth. "The dress she's wearing right now? The one everyone's been complimenting all day? She stole it from my closet without permission after I explicitly told her no. It was supposed to be my wedding dress. It cost $12,000. If the room had been shocked before, now it was complete pandemonium. Guests were standing talking loudly, some heading for the exits. Others were pulling out their phones, probably to text friends about the most dramatic wedding reception they'd ever witnessed. "How dare you?" Brittany screamed, finally finding her voice and letting her fury explode. "How dare you ruin my perfect wedding day? You jealous, bitter, pathetic?" "I'm not jealous, Brittany," I said calmly, setting down my champagne glass with steady hands. "I'm just tired of watching good people get hurt by your selfishness. I'm tired of staying silent while you build your happiness on other people's pain." Tyler walked around the head table and approached me. In front of 200 people, he said quietly, "Thank you, Jessica. I know this was incredibly hard for you to do, but thank you for having the courage I didn't have. You deserve someone who chooses you every single day," I told him. "Not someone who settles for you while dreaming of someone else. Not someone who keeps you as backup while chasing someone else." Brittany was crying now, her perfect makeup running in black streaks down her cheeks. My beautiful dress crumpled as she clutched desperately at Tyler's arm. "Tyler, please," she sobbed. "I can explain everything. It wasn't what it looked like. I love you, I chose you, I married you." "When?" Tyler asked quietly, his voice cutting through her desperate pleas. "When did you choose me, Brittany? Before or after Connor asked you to run away with him to San Francisco? Before or after you told him you needed time to think about whether you were making a mistake marrying me?" Brittany's silence was answer enough. Guests were filing out now, some stopping to pat Tyler's shoulder sympathetically or give him encouraging hugs, others just eager to escape the drama and gossip about it later. The perfect wedding reception had officially become a complete disaster. Mom and Dad looked absolutely devastated. $25,000 and months of planning, all destroyed in 5 minutes of uncomfortable truth. And me? For the first time in 30 years, I felt completely, totally free. The perfect wedding was over. But the real conversation was just beginning. Section 7. When the perfect facade crumbles, 1400 words. In the 30 seconds after I finished speaking, the Sterling Manor ballroom transformed from elegant wedding reception to absolute chaos. Guests rushed for the exits like the building was on fire. Elderly relatives clutched their pearls and whispered frantically to each other, and the wedding photographer looked like he was debating whether to keep shooting or run for his life. The wedding coordinator stood frozen near the cake table, probably wondering if this was covered in her contract. 3 bridesmaids huddled together in their blush pink dresses, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else on earth. The string quartet had stopped playing entirely, their instruments hanging uselessly in their hands. I stood in the center of it all, surprisingly calm despite the hurricane of destruction swirling around me. You know that feeling after a massive thunderstorm passes through, when the air feels washed clean and everything seems clearer? That's exactly how I felt. 30 years of swallowing my voice, and I'd finally used it when it mattered most. Tyler was the first person to reach me through the chaos. His face was a battlefield of emotions, relief, devastation, gratitude, and heartbreak, all fighting for dominance. "Jessica," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, I don't know how to thank you for what you just did. You don't need to thank me, I replied, looking into his eyes. You needed to know the truth before you spent the rest of your life wondering if you were going crazy. You deserved honesty, not a lifetime of doubt. Tyler nodded, tears in his eyes. I kept hoping I was wrong, that maybe I'd misunderstood the messages, or that she'd have some explanation that would make it all make sense somehow. Tyler, you're a good man. You deserve someone who thinks about you the way you think about them. Someone who can't imagine their life without you. Not someone who keeps you as a backup plan while chasing someone else. Before Tyler could respond, Brittany was there, my stolen dress trailing behind her like the train of destruction she'd left in her wake. Her perfect wedding makeup was completely ruined, mascara streaming down her cheeks in black rivers, her elaborate updo falling apart from all her frantic gesturing. You bitch! She screamed, loud enough that the remaining guests turned to stare. You absolute jealous bitch. You destroyed my wedding. My perfect day. How could you do this to me? The entitlement was breathtaking. Even caught red-handed in lies and theft, she was making herself the victim. I didn't destroy anything, Brittany, I said evenly, my voice steady despite her hysteria. I just told the truth. If the truth destroyed your wedding, maybe the problem wasn't the truth. The truth? She shrieked, her voice cracking with rage and desperation. The truth is you're jealous. You've always been jealous of me. You couldn't stand seeing me happy, so you had to ruin everything. It was fascinating in a horrifying way watching someone rewrite reality in real time. In Brittany's version of events, she was the innocent victim of my jealousy, not the perpetrator of betrayal and theft. Tyler's voice cut through her hysteria like a knife. Brittany, stop. Just stop. She whirled on him, switching tactics like a seasoned politician. Suddenly, the tears were softer, more vulnerable, designed to manipulate rather than rage. Tyler, baby, please, she pleaded, reaching for his hands with shaking fingers. I can explain everything. Yes, I was talking to Connor, but it didn't mean anything. It was just nostalgia, old feelings that I needed to work through before I could fully commit to you. Tyler stepped back, avoiding her touch completely. Working through old feelings by meeting him for secret lunches? By telling him you weren't sure about marrying me? By considering running away with him? Brittany's lies became more desperate, more frantic. I never said that. Jessica is twisting everything. She's making it sound so much worse than it actually was. Tyler pulled out his phone with hands that were surprisingly steady. Should I read the messages out loud, Brittany? Right here in front of everyone who's still here? Because I still have all of them saved. For a moment, Brittany's mask dropped entirely. No tears, no manipulation. Just cold calculation as she realized her usual tactics weren't working anymore. Fine, she said, her voice suddenly flat and emotionless. You want the brutal truth? Yes, I still have feelings for Connor. Yes, I was considering calling off the wedding. But Connor lives in San Francisco, Tyler. He couldn't commit to moving here for me, so I chose you. I chose the practical option. The practical option. She just reduced their entire relationship, their marriage, their supposed love story to a business decision in front of 50 remaining wedding guests. Tyler's face completely crumpled. The practical option, he repeated slowly, like he was trying to understand a foreign language. Not the love of your life. Not your soulmate. The practical option. That's not what I meant. Brittany started to backtrack. Yes, it is, Tyler said quietly, with more strength in his voice than I'd heard since this whole mess began. And you know what, Brittany? I'd rather be alone for the rest of my life than be someone's practical option. He turned and walked away, leaving Brittany standing there in my stolen dress, finally forced to confront the consequences of her choices instead of having everyone else clean up her messes. That's when Mom and Dad finally made their way through the remaining crowd to reach me. And they were absolutely furious. Jessica Marie Thompson, Mom hissed, using my full name like I was 12 years old again. How could you do this? How could you humiliate your sister like this in front of everyone? The family's response was so predictable it was almost funny. Brittany had stolen from me, lied to her husband, and emotionally cheated throughout her engagement. But somehow I was the villain for refusing to keep quiet about it. She humiliated herself, Mom, I said calmly. I just refused to be silent about it anymore. Dad looked toward Tyler, who was being comforted by his groomsmen near the exit. That poor boy, he said, shaking his head. This is going to destroy him emotionally. All because you couldn't keep your mouth shut about things that weren't your business. It was incredible. Tyler was the victim of Brittany's deception and betrayal, but somehow I was the villain for exposing it. This was my family's dysfunction in perfect miniature. Shoot the messenger. Protect the perpetrator. Dad, I said, surprised by how calm and steady my voice remained. Tyler deserved to know that his wife was emotionally cheating on him. And I deserved to not sit here and watch my sister get married in a dress she stole from me while everyone praised her for how beautiful she looked. She didn't steal it. Mom snapped. She borrowed it. Family borrows from family. Without asking, after I explicitly said no, while calling it a family heirloom to photographers and guests. I shook my head. That's not borrowing, Mom. That's theft. It's just a dress. Dad exploded, his face turning red. You ruined your sister's marriage over a piece of fabric. I didn't ruin anything. I shot back, finally losing my calm composure. I stopped being complicit in deception and theft. It's about 30 years of Brittany taking whatever she wants, and you two making excuses for her. It's about her stealing something precious to me, and you telling me I should be grateful. It's about watching her lie to a good man and being expected to keep quiet because family comes first. Mom and Dad stared at me like I'd grown a second head. In 30 years, I'd never raised my voice to them, never pushed back against their expectations, never demanded they acknowledge my feelings as valid. You want to know what family should look like? I continued, my voice strong and clear. Family should protect each other. Family should be honest with each other. Family shouldn't steal from each other, and then gaslight the victim when they complain about it. Brittany, who'd been quiet during this exchange, suddenly found her voice again. You know what your problem is, Jessica? She snarled, venom dripping from every word. You're so bitter about your own failed relationship that you can't stand watching anyone else be happy. You destroyed my marriage because misery loves company. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Standing there in my stolen dress, makeup ruined, train dirty from the chaos, still trying to make herself the victim of her own choices. Brittany, I said quietly, I hope someday you learn the difference between happiness and settling, between love and convenience, between taking what you want and earning what you deserve. I turned and walked toward the exit, leaving my family standing in the wreckage of their perfect day. Tyler was waiting by the ballroom doors, his tuxedo jacket off, his tie loosened, looking like a man who just escaped a burning building. Jessica, he called as I approached. I meant what I said earlier. Thank you for having the courage I didn't have. I know that was incredibly hard for you. You're going to be okay. I told him with complete certainty. Better than okay. Someday you'll meet someone who chooses you first every single day, and you'll understand why this had to happen. He nodded, managed a weak but genuine smile, and headed toward his car where his best man was waiting to drive him home. I walked out of Sterling Manor alone, but for the first time in my entire life I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. On the drive home, my phone buzzed constantly with text messages from relatives, family friends, and people who'd witnessed the drama. Everyone had opinions about what I'd done. I turned the phone off without reading any of them. When I got home, I poured myself a large glass of wine, changed into comfortable pajamas, and sat on my couch in the blessed silence of my own space. Had I destroyed my sister's wedding? Absolutely. Had I probably damaged my relationship with my parents permanently? Most likely. Had I caused a scene that people would talk about for years? Without question. Did I regret it? Not for a single second. I'd saved a good man from a lifetime of doubt and betrayal. I'd finally stood up for myself after 30 years of being a doormat. I'd refused to be complicit in deception and theft. For the first time in my life, I'd put my own truth ahead of family harmony. And the world hadn't ended. Actually, it felt like my real life was just beginning. 6 months after the wedding disaster that became legendary in our social circle, I was sitting in my apartment on a peaceful Saturday morning, coffee in hand, reading the newspaper in complete tranquility. No family drama, no stolen property, no lies to keep track of. Just quiet, beautiful normalcy. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. The contact name had changed from Brittany's fiancé to just Tyler. A small shift that represented everything that had changed. The message read, "Thought you'd want to see this," with a photo attached. The picture showed Tyler on a pristine beach in Tuscany, the honeymoon destination he'd decided to take alone after the divorce was finalized. He was tan, genuinely smiling for the first time since I'd known him, holding up a glass of Chianti with the Italian sunset painting the sky behind him in brilliant oranges and pinks. His follow-up text made me smile. "Best decision I ever made. Thank you for giving me my life back. I'm finally free." I genuinely smiled, feeling nothing but happiness for his healing journey. He'd spent 2 weeks in Italy, then another month traveling through Europe solo, taking time to remember who he was outside of a relationship built on deception. His Instagram post showed a man rediscovering joy, adventure, and self-worth. My own life had transformed in ways I'd never expected or imagined possible. It's funny how standing up for yourself once makes it easier to do it again and again, like a muscle that gets stronger with use. At work, I'd finally asked for the promotion I'd been earning for 2 years but had been too polite to demand. Turns out, when you stop accepting being overlooked in your personal life, you also stop accepting it professionally. I was now senior marketing director with a corner office, a substantial salary increase, and the respect I'd always deserved. I joined a book club where we discussed everything from literary fiction to true crime. I'd started taking pottery classes twice a week, discovering a talent I never knew I had. There's something deeply therapeutic about creating something beautiful with your own hands, something that belongs entirely to you, and can never be taken away or borrowed without permission. The pottery studio became my sanctuary. Working with clay taught me patience, acceptance of imperfection, and the beauty of starting over when something doesn't turn out right. Very metaphorical for my entire life journey. I'd even started dating again, but this time from a position of strength and self-knowledge, rather than desperation or loneliness. It's amazing how much more attractive and confident you become when you're not trying to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's expectations or emotional needs. Last month, I'd gone on several dates with David Martinez, an architect who designed sustainable housing for low-income families. He was kind, funny, intellectually stimulating, and when I told him the whole story about my sister's wedding disaster, his response was immediate. "Good for you. More people should choose uncomfortable truth over comfortable lies." That response told me everything I needed to know about his character. Around noon on this particular Saturday, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I looked through the peephole, I saw Brittany standing in my hallway. She looked completely different from the entitled princess I'd known my entire life. Smaller somehow, more humble. Her usual perfect makeup was minimal. Her hair was in a simple ponytail instead of an elaborate style, and she was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her typical designer ensemble. I opened the door cautiously. We hadn't spoken since the wedding disaster 6 months earlier, though I'd heard through family gossip that she and Tyler had divorced quietly 3 months later, and that she'd started therapy. "Hi," she said quietly, her voice lacking the usual confidence and manipulation. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now, but could we talk? Please. I have something that belongs to you." Something in her tone, genuine humility I'd never heard before, made me step aside and let her into my apartment. She was carrying a garment bag from the dry cleaner, which she handed to me immediately. "Your dress," she said simply, "professionally cleaned and restored. I should have returned it months ago, but I was too ashamed to face you." I unzipped the bag and found my wedding dress in perfect condition, looking exactly as beautiful as the day I'd bought it in Paris. "Thank you," I said, genuinely surprised by the gesture. "I honestly didn't think I'd ever see this again." "I came to apologize," Brittany said without preamble. No dramatic build-up or manipulation tactics. "Really apologize. Not the fake kind I used to do when I got caught doing something wrong. A real apology." We sat in my living room, the same space where Tyler had broken down 6 months earlier. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "I've been in therapy since the divorce," Brittany continued, looking down at her hands. "Dr. Martinez has helped me understand that I've been what she calls emotionally parasitic my entire life, taking what I needed from people without considering the cost to them or caring about the damage I caused." I listened without interrupting. This was the first time I'd ever heard Brittany acknowledge that her actions had consequences for other people. "The dress thing," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I knew you said no. I knew it meant something special and irreplaceable to you. I took it anyway because I wanted it. And I've always gotten what I wanted without thinking about who I was hurting." She paused, gathering courage for what came next. "And Tyler. Tyler was a genuinely good man who deserved so much better than being someone's backup plan. You were absolutely right to tell him the truth. I was too selfish and cowardly to do it myself." I studied my sister's face carefully. This wasn't the manipulative, entitled woman I'd known my entire life. This was someone who looked like she'd been through hell and had learned something profound from the experience. "I'm glad you're getting professional help," I said carefully. "And I appreciate the apology more than you know. But Brittany, you hurt a lot of people. Tyler, me, even mom and dad who had to watch their perfect daughter image crumble in public." "I know," she said quietly, tears starting to form in her eyes. "I know I can't undo any of it. I can't give Tyler back those months of wondering if he was crazy or imagining things. I can't give you back the dress's original meaning, or the trust one violated. I can't even give our parents back their pride in me." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, a gesture that seemed genuine rather than performative. "But Dr. Martinez says that real change starts with taking full responsibility without expecting forgiveness in return. So I'm not asking you to forgive me, Jessica. I'm not even asking for a relationship. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I did wrong, and why it was so destructive." We talked for another hour and a half. Not like sisters exactly, but like two adults trying to understand each other across a vast chasm of hurt and history. She told me about her divorce, her therapy sessions twice a week, her struggles with learning to be alone and single for the first time since she was 15 years old. "I've never been without a boyfriend for more than a month since high school," she admitted. "I always needed someone else's attention and validation to feel valuable as a person. That's why I kept Connor as emotional backup. That's why I couldn't let Tyler go even when I knew I didn't love him the way he deserved to be loved." It was strange and surreal, hearing my sister speak with such brutal self-awareness. Like meeting a completely different person who happened to share Brittany's face and voice. "Have you talked to Mom and Dad recently?" she asked as she prepared to leave. "Occasionally," I said honestly. "But I've made it very clear that if they want any kind of relationship with me going forward, it has to be based on mutual respect. No more expecting me to apologize for other people's bad behavior, or to sacrifice my well-being for family appearances." "They're struggling with that," Brittany said with a sad but understanding smile. "Turns out, when you stop being the family scapegoat, they actually have to deal with problems instead of just blaming you for them." It was absolutely true. Mom and Dad had called several times over the months, clearly hoping I'd apologize for embarrassing the family, so things could go back to the old normal. When I consistently refused, they seemed genuinely confused about how to relate to this new version of me. "Jessica," Brittany said at my door, her hand on the doorknob, "I hope you find someone who truly deserves you. Someone who sees how amazing you are, and never makes you feel like you need to shrink yourself to fit into their world." "I hope you find that too," I replied with genuine sincerity. "But more importantly, I hope you learn to see your own worth without needing someone else to validate it for you." After she left, I hung my wedding dress back in my closet. It looked exactly the same as before, but somehow it felt completely different. Less like a monument to broken dreams, more like a symbol of my own strength and worth. Maybe someday I'd wear it to my own wedding. Maybe someday I'd donate it to someone who needed their own fairy tale moment. Or maybe it would just hang there, reminding me that I'm worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth choosing first. 1 year after the wedding disaster, my life was unrecognizable in the most beautiful ways possible. David and I had been together for 8 months, and it was the healthiest, most honest relationship I'd ever experienced. No games, no manipulation, no wondering where I stood or what he was thinking. He communicated clearly, respected my boundaries completely, and celebrated my successes instead of feeling threatened by them. When he proposed on a secluded beach in Oregon during a weekend getaway, his words were perfect. "Jessica, I want to choose you every single day for the rest of my life, not because you're convenient or practical, but because you're extraordinary. Will you choose me back?" No public spectacle for social media. No pressure or manipulation. No ring that costs more than a car. Just a man who understood that marriage should be about mutual choice and daily commitment, not possession or status symbols. We planned a small, intimate wedding for the following spring. 50 people who genuinely loved and supported us, a venue that held personal meaning, and a dress I chose myself because it made me feel confident and beautiful. Tyler had found love again with Sarah, an art teacher who laughed at his jokes and never once made him wonder if he was her first choice. His Christmas card showed them hiking together in Colorado, both grinning like people who'd found their perfect match. Brittany was still in therapy, working part-time at a nonprofit organization, while continuing to figure out who she was outside of other people's expectations and approval. She'd sent a simple card congratulating me on my engagement with a note that said, "He's lucky to have you. So is the world." Mom and Dad were gradually learning to have an authentic relationship with the new me. It was awkward and uncomfortable sometimes, but it was honest. They'd even admitted that they'd been unfairly hard on me growing up, expecting me to be the easy child while enabling Brittany's increasingly difficult behavior. Looking back now, that moment at Brittany's reception when I stood up with Tyler's letter in my hand was the precise moment my real life began. Not the life where I accommodated everyone else's needs at the expense of my own, but the life where I honored my own truth and dignity. I'd learned that you can't have authentic relationships while living an inauthentic life. You can't be truly loved while pretending to be someone you're not. You can't have genuine peace while keeping other people's destructive secrets. If I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it would be this: your feelings matter. Your boundaries matter. Your truth matters. And anyone who asks you to sacrifice those things for their comfort isn't asking for love, they're asking for enabling. On my wedding day with David, I wore a new dress that I'd chosen specifically for this new chapter of my life. A dress that no one else had ever worn, that represented the authentic future I was creating rather than the painful past I was healing from. My original dress, the one Brittany had stolen and returned, I donated to a non-profit program that provides wedding dresses to women escaping domestic violence situations. Women who were starting their lives over, choosing themselves over destructive relationships, finding the courage to build something real and healthy. It felt like the perfect ending for that dress. Not stored away as a monument to heartbreak, but actively helping other women celebrate their freedom and new beginnings. Standing at the altar with David, looking into the eyes of a man who chose me every day without hesitation or doubt, I thought about the incredible journey that had brought me to this moment. I'd gone from the sister who swallowed her voice to keep an artificial peace, to the woman who spoke her truth regardless of the personal cost. From someone who accepted emotional crumbs to someone who demanded the whole feast of love and respect. From the supporting character in other people's stories to the confident hero of my own life. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others is refuse to participate in dysfunction and deception. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is tell a truth that others desperately don't want to hear. And sometimes, destroying someone's perfect illusion is the only way to build something genuine and real. As David and I shared our first dance as husband and wife, I caught a glimpse of Tyler and Sarah at a corner table, him spinning her around while both of them laughed with pure joy. Two people who'd learned to choose authentic love over convenient settling, truth over comfortable lies, reality over beautiful facades. I'd never been happier that I'd found the courage to speak up when it mattered most. Your truth is always worth fighting for. Always.